The phone call that changed everything came at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of restraining a German Shepherd for his rabies shot when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Something made me answer it anyway. "Ms. Thorne? This is Joyce Brennan from Child Protective Services. We have your daughter, Gracie, here at the Riverside Emergency Shelter." My hands went numb. The coffee mug I'd set on the counter crashed to the floor, ceramic shards scattering across the white tiles. Dr. Hartley looked up alarmed as the dog jumped back, barking at the sudden noise. "What do you mean you have Gracie?" My voice came out strangled, foreign to my own ears. "She's at Disneyland with my parents. They picked her up this morning." "Ma'am, your parents dropped her here 2 hours ago." The woman's voice was professional, but I could hear the underlying concern. "They told our intake staff they couldn't do this anymore and left before we could get proper information." The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of the exam table, my knuckles white against the metal. This had to be some kind of mistake. My parents, Warren and Deborah Quinlan, had been planning this Disneyland trip for 2 weeks. Gracie had been talking about nothing else. She'd practiced her princess wave in the mirror every night. They left her there? Alone? The words tasted impossible in my mouth. "She's safe, Miss Thorne, but very confused and asking for you. She keeps telling us her grandparents said this was a special waiting room at Disneyland and they'd be right back. My 7-year-old daughter, my baby girl who still slept with her stuffed elephant and believed in fairy godmothers, was sitting in an emergency shelter thinking she was at the happiest place on earth. The cruelty of it knocked the breath from my lungs. I'm coming right now." I was already ripping off my medical gloves, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grab my purse. "Please tell her I'm coming. Tell her Mommy's coming right now." "Miss Thorne, I need to inform you that this constitutes child abandonment. We're required to involve the police." "Good," I heard myself say, and I meant it. Because whatever game my parents thought they were playing, they'd just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. They'd used my daughter's innocence and excitement against her, turned a promised magical day into something that would require therapy to process. As I ran to my car, leaving Dr. Hartley shouting questions behind me, one thought consumed me. How could the two people I trusted most in this world do this to the little girl who loved them unconditionally? 3 days earlier, life felt almost perfect. I'd finally gotten my veterinary assistant certification after 2 years of night classes, juggling textbooks with bedtime stories, studying anatomy while Gracie colored beside me at the kitchen table. Friday morning had started with such promise. The October sun streamed through the clinic windows as I prepped the surgery suite, humming along to the radio. My parents had been my lifeline since the divorce 2 years ago. When Brandon walked out claiming he wasn't ready for the responsibility, they stepped in without hesitation. Every weekday at 3:15 p.m., their silver Honda would pull up to Riverside Elementary, and Gracie would run into my mother's arms like she was greeting royalty. "Mommy, Grandma said she has a huge surprise for me." Gracie had burst through the clinic door that Friday afternoon, her brown curls bouncing with each skip. She was wearing the purple dress Mom had bought her, the one with unicorns that she insisted on wearing twice a week. My mother followed behind, her familiar lavender perfume filling the small waiting room. At 56, Deborah Quinlan still looked like the PTA president she'd been during my childhood. Perfectly styled blonde hair and that warm smile that had comforted me through scraped knees and broken hearts. "We want to take her to Disneyland on Tuesday," Mom announced, her hands on Gracie's shoulders. "Warren got discount tickets through his retirement club. 5 other couples from church are going too, making it a whole group event." My father appeared in the doorway then, his tall frame blocking the afternoon light. Warren Quinlan had been a high school principal for 30 years, the kind of man whose approval you craved even as an adult. "Figured our little princess deserves a magical day," he said, winking at Gracie, who giggled and hid her face in Mom's skirt. "That's incredibly generous," I said, already calculating how this would help. Tuesday was typically my longest day at the clinic, with back-to-back surgeries scheduled until 6. "Are you sure? Disneyland tickets are expensive, even with a discount." "Melinda Jane Thorne." Mom used my full name the way she did when I was young and refusing help. "We want to do this. You work yourself to the bone at this clinic. Let us spoil our only granddaughter." I hugged them both, breathing in the familiar scent of Dad's Old Spice cologne. "What do you say, Gracie?" "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Gracie launched herself at her grandparents, and they caught her in a practiced move, swinging her between them like they'd done since she was a toddler. That weekend was filled with Disneyland preparation. Saturday morning, Gracie and I went to Target, where she carefully selected travel snacks with the seriousness of a surgeon choosing instruments. Goldfish crackers, apple juice boxes, and string cheese went into her pink backpack alongside Mr. Peanuts, the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was 2. Grandpa said we'll see all the princesses, she informed me Saturday night, arranging and rearranging the items in her backpack. Belle and Ariel and Elsa, and he said we'll ride the teacups until we get dizzy, then eat ice cream for lunch if I don't tell you. She covered her mouth dramatically. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that part. I laughed, tucking her into bed. Your secret's safe with me, baby. Sunday dinner at my parents' house followed our usual routine. Mom made her famous pot roast while Dad helped Gracie with her homework at the dining room table, his patience endless as she struggled through subtraction problems. I watched them from the kitchen doorway, feeling that familiar warmth of family security. You're doing such a good job with her, Mom said quietly, drying dishes beside me. Despite everything with Brandon, she's turning out wonderful. I couldn't do it without you and Dad, I admitted. Knowing she's with you while I'm at work, that she's safe and loved, it means everything. Dad looked up then, catching my eye over Gracie's head. Family takes care of family, Melly. Always has. Always will. Monday night, Gracie was too excited to eat dinner. She managed 3 bites of mac and cheese before pushing her plate away. My tummy has butterflies, she announced. Happy butterflies that are doing flips. I helped her pack one more time, adding sunscreen and an extra hair tie. She modeled her Minnie Mouse shirt in the mirror, practicing her princess wave. Do you think Minnie will like my shirt? She'll love it, I assured her, setting her alarm for 7 a.m. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's your big day. Those words would haunt me later. Your big day. The day I entrusted my most precious person to the 2 people I thought would protect her like I would. The day that started with such joy and ended with police reports and therapy referrals. Tuesday morning started perfectly. My alarm went off at 6:30, but Gracie was already awake, sitting on my bed, fully dressed in her Minnie Mouse shirt and pink shorts, Mr. Peanuts clutched in her lap. Is it time yet? Is it time? She whispered, as if speaking too loudly might make the day disappear. I made her favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with cheese and toast cut into triangles, though she barely touched it. She was vibrating with excitement, running to the window every few minutes to check for my parents' car. At 7:45, she spotted it turning onto our street. They're here! They're here! She grabbed her backpack and raced to the door. Mom was out of the car before Dad even put it in park, arms open wide. There's our Disney princess. Ready for the best day ever? Grandma, look, I wore the special shirt. Gracie spun in a circle, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. Dad walked over to me, pressing something into my hand. It was a crisp $50 bill. For dinner tonight, he said, treat yourself to something nice while we're gone. You deserve it. I tried to refuse, but he closed my fingers around the money. Let us do this, Melly. I kissed Gracie goodbye, straightening her backpack straps one more time. Be good for Grandma and Grandpa, okay? And remember everything so you can tell me tonight. Every single thing, she promised, already climbing into her booster seat. Mom sent me a photo 20 minutes later. Gracie holding her Disney ticket in what looked like a parking lot, her smile so wide it must have hurt her cheeks. The caption read, "Almost there, she's about to burst with joy." I showed everyone at the clinic. Dr. Hartley smiled at my enthusiasm. First Disneyland trip? He asked. First everything, I said. First theme park, first time seeing the princesses in real life. She's been practicing her curtsy for weeks. The morning flew by in a blur of appointments. 3 vaccinations, 2 teeth cleanings, and a cat with a mysterious limp that turned out to be a dramatics performance for attention. I kept checking my phone, hoping for more pictures, but reminded myself they were probably having too much fun to stop and text. At lunch, I sat in the break room with my colleague, Jennifer, showing her the morning's photo again. Look at that face, I said. Pure happiness. Your parents are amazing, Jennifer said. I wish my kids had grandparents like that. I know, I got lucky. At 2:30, we were preparing for a routine space surgery. I was laying out surgical instruments when I felt my phone buzz. Unknown number. Normally I'd let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Ms. Thorne, this is Joyce Brennan from Child Protective Services. The words didn't make sense at first. They floated in the air like puzzle pieces that wouldn't fit together. Child Protective Services. Gracie at a shelter. Parents dropped her off. Can't do this anymore. That's impossible, I said, my voice sounding like it was coming from underwater. They're at Disneyland. My mother sent me a photo. They had tickets. Miss Thorne, I'm looking at your daughter right now. She's in our intake room. Your parents left her here at 12:45 p.m. The surgical instruments clattered to the floor as my legs buckled. Dr. Hartley caught my arm, steadying me. Melinda? What's wrong? They left her at a shelter. The words came out as a whisper, then stronger, angrier. They told her they were taking her to Disneyland and they left her at a shelter. Mrs. Brennan's voice continued, professional but sympathetic. There was a note pinned to her jacket. It said, "Her mother can figure it out. We're done." A note? Pinned to her jacket? I was shouting now, not caring who heard. Like she's some unwanted pet? Miss Thorne, I need you to come pick her up. She's very confused and keeps asking when her grandparents are coming back. She thinks this is part of the Disneyland experience. I was already grabbing my keys, my hands shaking so violently I dropped them twice. I'm coming. Tell her I'm coming right now. Please just stay with her. The drive should have taken 45 minutes. It took 3 hours. Construction on Highway 60 had traffic backed up for miles. I called my parents 17 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. I left messages that progressed from confused to furious to pleading. Mom, please, what's happening? Call me back. Dad, this isn't funny. Where are you? How could you do this to her? She's 7 years old. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every mile stretched endless. I kept picturing Gracie's face, confused and scared, waiting for grandparents who weren't coming back, in a place that was nothing like the magic kingdom she'd been promised. When I finally pulled into the Riverside Emergency Shelter parking lot, my hands were cramped from gripping the steering wheel. The building was nothing like Disneyland. Gray concrete walls, barred windows, a heavy metal door with a security buzzer. This was where my parents had left their granddaughter, telling her it was part of her magical day. Through the reinforced glass window, I saw her immediately. Gracie was curled up on a green plastic chair, her pink backpack on her lap, Mr. Peanuts pressed against her chest. Her Minnie Mouse shirt was wrinkled, her carefully braided hair now messy and loose. She was staring at the door with the intensity of someone willing it to open through sheer hope. The moment the security buzzer let me in, her head snapped up. "Mommy!" The word came out as a wail that broke something deep inside my chest. She flew across the room, her little body slamming into my legs with desperate force. "Mommy, you came. The lady said Grandma and Grandpa had to leave, but they're coming back, right? They said this was a special waiting room. They said if I was really good and quiet, we'd still see the princesses." I dropped to my knees, pulling her against me, feeling her whole body shaking. Her skin was cold despite the warm October day. "Baby, I'm here. You're safe. I've got you." "But where are Grandma and Grandpa? They said the car needed something fixed. They said to wait here and be a good girl and not cry." Her voice hitched. "I tried not to cry, Mommy, but I got scared when they didn't come back." Mrs. Brennan approached quietly, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a bun. She waited until Gracie had calmed slightly before speaking. "Ms. Thorne, could we talk privately for a moment? My colleague Sarah can sit with Gracie." I didn't want to let go of my daughter, but Gracie was already eyeing the coloring books Sarah had brought over. "Just for a minute, baby. I'll be right over there where you can see me." Mrs. Brennan led me to a corner office, keeping the door open so I could watch Gracie. "Miss Thorne, I need to be direct with you. This constitutes child abandonment under California law. Your parents left your daughter here with no intention of returning. They told our intake coordinator they were done raising their granddaughter." "They said what?" My voice rose, and I forced it back down, not wanting to scare Gracie further. "They said you relied on them too much, that you needed to learn to handle things on your own." Mrs. Brennan pulled out a clear plastic bag. This was pinned to your daughter's jacket. The note was written on my mother's personal stationery, the elegant script I'd seen on birthday cards and grocery lists my whole life. "Her mother can figure it out. We're done." 7 words that destroyed 35 years of trust. "We're mandated reporters," Mrs. Brennan continued. "We have to file a report with the police. But as the parent, you have the right to press charges. What would you like to do?" I looked at Gracie, coloring with fierce concentration, probably still believing this was somehow part of her Disneyland adventure. "I want to press charges." "Are you certain? These are your parents. Family situations can be complicated, and sometimes people prefer to handle things privately." "They told my 7-year-old daughter they were taking her to Disneyland," I said, my voice steady and cold. "They used her innocence and trust to abandon her at a shelter. They traumatized her for what? To teach me some kind of lesson? Yes, I want to press charges. I want this documented. I want there to be consequences." Mrs. Brennan nodded, making notes. "Detective Vega from our Child Crimes Unit will be here shortly. He'll need to interview both you and Gracie, though he's very good with children." While we waited, I sat with Gracie, helping her color a picture of a butterfly. She kept looking up at me as if making sure I was still there. "Mommy, did I do something bad? Is that why Grandma and Grandpa left?" "No, baby, never think that. You did nothing wrong. Grandma and Grandpa made a very bad choice, but it had nothing to do with you being bad." Detective Ramon Vega arrived within an hour, a soft-spoken man with silver threading through his black hair. He interviewed Gracie first, using gentle questions and letting her hold Mr. Peanuts while she talked. She told him about the promises of princesses, the special breakfast Grandpa said they'd have, how Grandma helped her buckle her seatbelt extra tight for safety on the rides. "They said I had to wait here first," Gracie explained to the detective. "Grandpa said it was like a test to see if I could be patient. He said all the good girls who waited quietly got to meet Elsa." After Gracie's interview, while she played with Sarah in another room, Detective Vega turned to me. "We'll pick them up tonight for questioning. This is psychological abuse, child abandonment, and potentially conspiracy if they planned this together. Are you prepared for what this means? Criminal charges against your own parents?" I thought about Gracie asking if she'd been bad, about the note pinned to her jacket like she was lost property, about the trust they'd shattered. "I'm prepared." 3 days passed before Detective Vega called. "Your parents have agreed to come in for questioning this afternoon. I wanted you to know we've completed our investigation. The evidence is substantial." I'd spent those 3 days holding Gracie through nightmares, watching her flinch every time someone knocked at the door, seeing her check repeatedly that I was still there. She'd started sleeping in my bed, clutching Mr. Peanuts and my hand simultaneously, whimpering whenever I shifted. The detective called again at 4 p.m. "Miss Thorne, your parents have just left the station. I think you need to hear what happened." My parents had walked into the police station like they were attending a church social. Mom wore her pearl necklace and best blue dress. Dad had on his principal suit, the one he wore for school board meetings. They sat down across from Detective Vega with what he described as remarkable confidence. "This is all a misunderstanding," Dad had started, actually chuckling. "We were playing a little prank on our daughter, teaching her a lesson about appreciation." "A prank?" Detective Vega's voice had remained neutral. "Explain that to me." Mom jumped in, her voice bright and conversational. "Melinda has been taking us for granted. Ever since she got that raise last month, she's been talking about putting Gracie in after-school care instead of having us pick her up. Can you imagine? Paying strangers when her grandparents are available? So, you decided to abandon her child at a shelter?" "Not abandon," Dad corrected, as if this was a vocabulary quiz. "We were always going to go back. We just wanted Melinda to panic a little, realize how much she needs us. Maybe an hour or two of worry would remind her to be grateful. You left a 7-year-old at an emergency shelter for over 2 hours. You told her you were taking her to Disneyland." "Well, we had to tell her something," Mom said. "Otherwise, she wouldn't have come with us willingly. The Disneyland story was perfect. She was so excited, she didn't ask questions." Detective Vega had pulled out his laptop then. "I'd like to show you something. This is security footage from the shelter." The video started with my parents' Honda pulling into the shelter parking lot. Gracie's voice could be heard clearly. "Is this Disneyland? It doesn't look like the pictures." "This is a special entrance," my father's voice replied, "for VIP guests like you." The footage showed them walking Gracie inside, her hand trustingly in Mom's. At the intake desk, Gracie had wandered a few feet away to look at a fish tank. That's when Mom quickly signed papers and pinned the note to Gracie's jacket. "Grandma, what's that?" Gracie had asked, noticing the paper. "Just your special Disney pass, sweetheart. Now you wait here like a good girl." The next part was devastating. As my parents tried to leave, Gracie realized something was wrong. She grabbed Mom's jacket. "Where are you going? Aren't we going together?" Dad physically pried her small fingers off the fabric. "We have to get the car fixed, remember? Be a good girl and wait." "But I want to come with you." Gracie's voice rose to a panic. They walked out anyway. The camera showed Gracie running after them, her little fists pounding on the locked door. "Grandma! Grandpa! Please come back. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. Please don't leave me." She stood at that door for 23 minutes, crying and calling for them. But the worst part came next. The parking lot camera showed my parents standing by their car, clearly discussing something. The audio picked up their conversation perfectly. Mom's voice was clear. She needs to learn that raising a kid alone has consequences. Maybe now Melinda will beg us for help like she should have from the beginning. Dad replied, "Exactly. She thinks that raise makes her independent? Let's see how independent she feels when she realizes what we do for her. The shelter will call her eventually." "How long should we wait before answering our phones?" Mom asked. "Let's give it until tonight. Let her really feel it. Remember how she said she didn't need us to watch Gracie every day anymore? That she could manage? Well, let's see her manage this." They sat in their car for 5 more minutes, engine running, while inside their granddaughter was sobbing for them. Detective Vega had paused the video. "That doesn't sound like a prank. That sounds like premeditated child abandonment, conspiracy to inflict emotional distress, and psychological abuse of a minor." My parents' confidence evaporated. Mom's face went white. Dad started stuttering about misunderstandings. "You're both under arrest," Detective Vega announced. "You have the right to remain silent." Mom had actually said, "But we have dinner plans." The detective called me after they were processed. "They're being charged with felony child abandonment and conspiracy. Bail's set at $50,000 each. The video evidence is ironclad, Miss Thorne. They planned this, executed it, and showed zero remorse until they realized there were consequences." I sat in my dark living room after that call, Gracie finally asleep upstairs, and realized the full truth. My parents had used my daughter as a weapon against me, her innocence as ammunition in some twisted power play I hadn't even known we were fighting. The trial lasted 3 days and made headlines across Riverside County. Grandparents arrested for elaborate Disneyland deception ran on the front page of the Tribune. My parents' church friends sat behind them in court, their faces shifting from supportive to horrified as the security footage played. They pleaded down to misdemeanor child endangerment, 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, mandatory psychological counseling, and a restraining order keeping them 500 feet away from Gracie and me at all times. Their lawyer argued for leniency based on their lifetime of community service and momentary lapse in judgment. Momentary. As if planning an elaborate deception, traumatizing a 7-year-old and standing in a parking lot discussing how long to let me suffer was momentary. The real aftermath wasn't in the courtroom, though. It was in my living room, where Gracie went through 6 months of twice-weekly therapy. Dr. Patricia Chen specialized in childhood trauma and used play therapy to help Gracie process what happened. For weeks, Gracie drew the same picture over and over, a little girl standing at a door, waiting for people who never came back. "Mommy, why did they pretend about Disneyland?" she asked one evening, 4 months after that terrible day. "We were making cookies, her favorite activity that seemed to calm her anxiety." I'd practiced this answer with Dr. Chen. "Sometimes, baby, people make terrible choices when they want to control others. What Grandma and Grandpa did was never about you. You're perfect exactly as you are." "But they said they loved me." "I know, sweetheart. That's what makes it so confusing and hurts so much." She stirred chocolate chips into the dough, thinking. "My friend Emma says her grandma would never do that." She's right. What happened to you wasn't normal or okay. Most grandparents protect their grandchildren, not hurt them. The truth I came to understand through my own therapy was harder than any abandonment. The people who are supposed to love you most can be the ones capable of the deepest betrayal. My parents had performed love my entire life, but it was conditional, transactional, a tool for control. When I stopped needing them the way they wanted me to need them, they used my daughter to punish me. But here's what they didn't count on. Trauma either breaks you or builds you. Gracie and I, we built something stronger than before. Dr. Hartley's wife, Susan, started picking Gracie up from school. She was a retired teacher who missed being around children. "No payment," she insisted. "Just let me spoil her a little." She taught Gracie to knit, to bake bread, to plant tomatoes in her garden. Mrs. Brennan from Child Services checked in monthly, even after the case was officially closed. She became Aunt Joyce, joining us for Sunday dinners and Gracie's school plays. "You two are my success story," she said, "the ones who didn't let it define them." Detective Vega sent Gracie a real junior detective badge for her 8th birthday with a note, "For the bravest girl I know. Your courage helped make sure no other child goes through what you did." Because that was the other outcome. My parents' case led to changes in how the shelter processed intake, requiring multiple forms of verification before accepting children, preventing anyone else from using their tactics. 8 months after that horrible Tuesday, I kept a promise. I took Gracie to actual Disneyland. As we drove into the parking lot, she grabbed my hand. "This is real, right, Mommy? We're really going?" "Every magical second of it, baby." We rode every ride she wanted, some of them 3 times. We met every princess, and when Elsa hugged Gracie and said she was brave and strong, Gracie whispered, "I really am, aren't I?" We stayed until the fireworks, Gracie on my shoulders, her hands stretched toward the exploding lights. That night in the hotel, she said something that broke and healed my heart simultaneously. "Mommy, I'm glad it's just us. We don't need anybody else to be a real family." My parents had tried to teach me a lesson about needing them. Instead, they taught me that Gracie and I were enough, that real love doesn't come with conditions, manipulation, or cruel tests. That family isn't about blood, but about who shows up, who stays, who chooses love over control. The security footage that convicted them became my reminder that when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time, even if they're the people who raised you, especially then. Sometimes the family that betrays you actually sets you free to find the family you deserve. And sometimes that family is smaller than you imagined, but stronger than you ever thought possible. Just a mother and daughter, building a life from trust, real love, and the absolute certainty that no matter what, we show up for each other. No tricks, no tests, just love. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to choose between toxic family and your child's well-being, know that you're not alone. Like this video, if it touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear that choosing to protect their children from harmful family members doesn't make them bad people. It makes them good parents. Comment below with your own experiences of choosing chosen family over blood relations. And subscribe to this channel for more stories of resilience, survival, and the courage to build new families from the ashes of old betrayals. Remember, you deserve love without conditions.